All right. Hello and welcome to Plugin Along, a stream dedicated to LOTRO plugins. Last time on Plugin Along, we continued fixing issues with the dtracker plugin. We started by adding an always on top mode for the mini icon. And then we refactored the code so that the mini icon is no longer a part of the main window. It's its own thing, which had been bugging me for a while. So today we're going to continue with the dtracker plugin and see what other improvements we can make. But as always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions about Lord of the Rings in general or plugins in specific. In the meantime, let's just review where we are. We are in Glenhelg in Swanfleet, and we're looking at the dtracker plugin. So, when I talk about the mini icon, a lot of plugins will have some sort of a mini icon that lets you raise and lower the main window or do something else. Like in this case, if I click on it, now it opens up the options for the plugin. And we now have an option to show or hide that. We have an option for it to be opaque. Except when the mouse cursor is over it, or even while the mouse cursor is over it. Don't have a good name for that. And we have options now for the size and shape of this. And also whether or not it is on top or not. And that was because when it was over here on the side of the radar, which was a use case that was asked for, if you click on the radar, then it will cover up the mini icon unless we go ahead and say it's always on top. And then you can click on the radar and that icon is still there. So that's sort of where we have been for the last few sessions for the dtracker. Oops. Okay, so what else are we going to do? Well, there's a big thing that's causing me problems. Well, maybe not problems. There's a big one that I want to do, which is to automate the production of a language file so that I can get Spanish up in this next release as well. But that's kind of a large task, and I don't know if we're going to be able to get to that tonight. But I do have a couple of other to-do items that we've been logging over in GitHub. So let's go ahead and pull those up. So over in GitHub, which is where the code is living when it's not on my computer, or even when it is on my computer, I suppose, we have a list of things. And some of them are just reminders, and some of them are ones I actually want to get done sooner rather than later. So, first of all, Ered Luin. And some of these have already been done and just haven't been marked off correctly, so we're going to discover if that's the case as well. Ered Luin. Let's take a look at Ered Luin. And oh my goodness, let's get this thing back because I always have it in my bottom left, and it's going to mess me up if I don't have that. So Ered Luin is one of the areas in Eriador, and it's divided into a lower level area and a higher level area. The lower level area is everything that is not Sarnar, and then the high level area is Sarnar. And this is very similar to now in Bree-land, where you also have the Wildwood, where Bree-land is like levels 1 to 15, give or take, and the Wildwood picks up at level 45-ish, maybe 40. So if you're doing everything else in Bree and then you wander into the Wildwood, you will die. So don't do that. So Ered Luin has this, and we have Betrayer's Bane, which is Sarnar, Master Beast, Troll Kicker, and Avenger of Sarnar. So I want to go ahead and just have a little category separation there, like we do with Bree-land. With Bree-land, we can see we have Wildwood here. We want to do that same thing with Ered Luin as well. So we don't have a category here up for the main stuff. We're just calling out for Wildwood, and we'll go ahead and echo that as well. So let's pull up some code. So where were we? What we want is to pull up so the categories can be localized per language. And so there's one of these for each language. English, German, French, and also Russian is supported. And what we want to do is find where this is happening. And so, well, it's not going to be Ered, but Bree-land, we know there's one there. So we can go ahead and say Eriador, Ered Luin. And is it hyphenated? It is not. 2 words. Luin. Excellent. And then what we want to do is we want to add a new category. Now these do not have to be in numerical order, but this is populating a table that is indexed by number. And in Lua, if we're going to iterate through that in a specific order, we want to make sure that we start at 1 and we increment through all the numbers with no gaps, no skips, no nothing. So as a cheat sheet, at the very bottom, I have a last used is 344. We can find that. And if we look for 345, we don't find it. So 344 was the last one that we used. So 345 equals name equals, and we're going to go ahead and call that Sarnar right after we look up the spelling of Sarnar. Great. So with an accent over the U. Okay, great. Now, oftentimes, Dwarvish and Elvish words are not localized further to German or French or whatnot. The conceit, Tolkien's conceit when writing Lord of the Rings was he found a book and has translated it, and so the closer it is to Hobbitish or Common, the more likely it is to be translated in, and the Elvish words and the Dwarvish words, those don't need to be translated because they were foreign to the point of view characters of the Hobbits. Although the title of the book is The Lord of the Rings, which is the one ring to rule them all, the other rings. And does it know languages? Probably. But that's a different question. Anyway, so we have name equals Sarnar here, and we want to just go ahead and update our last used as 345. Cool. And then we'll want to make sure we copy this over to the other categories. So this is line 337. And 337. There we go. So we do have currently it's the same in all categories, but this is something we can search through data files and figure out, does it need to be translated further? But let's go ahead and make use of this category now that we have it. Now this is a bit of a roundabout system, but let's come into Documents, Lord of the Rings Online, plugins, Cube plugins, that's me, Deed Tracker, coming into the data files, sorry, not data files, source files, and we're going to come into Eriador. So, coming into Eriador, we're going to go on into Ered Luin, and the real question is, do we have category? We do. Awesome. So category ID, we're looking for O. Great. And so we're going to come on down here, make a new line, and this is going to be category. We know it's 345, but we'll double check. Yep, great. So let's go ahead and copy this. So this is Sarnar, and this is a category. Great. So we do want to go ahead and whenever you insert rows in Excel, formulas will tend to get a little wonky. And so we'll go ahead and just copy down from the previous row. If we want to be really careful, we'll copy down from nowhere near that insertion or deletion. So we could start all the way at the top and bring it all the way to the bottom, and that would be fine. Okay, so we can see that we have a category ID instead of a deed ID, and so we're good to go. We're going to go ahead and bring this on into our deed info. So Ered Luin, great. Now we see 27 there. We should now have 28. Great. And the final thing is we're going to go ahead and unload and reload. And we're going to see we now have Sarnar. Now, would it be nice to have something like a level range? This and Wildwood. That is an interesting idea because we could do that. Now I'm curious. I posted a link earlier. Do I still have that link? Maybe. Maps. Interconnected zones. There we go. Cool. Where'd my browser go? There we go. Okay, so this is very handy when I'm trying to remember what the probable range of a zone is. And it hasn't been updated for a while. There may be more updated versions of this around. But we can see Bree-land is posted as 1 to 24 and Wildwood is 45 to 50. Let's go ahead and incorporate that information. So let's go ahead and duck back in and say, okay, the category isn't just Sarnar, it's going to be goodness, what is the level range for Sarnar?
45?
Looks like it was endgame for Shadows of Angmar, 45 to 50. So we'll go ahead and take that as authoritative until someone says otherwise. So we're going to go ahead and include that here. So let's go ahead and remember to save everything. And then we're going to unload and reload. And we can see Sarnar, 45 to 50. Awesome. Let's do the same thing for the Wildwood. In fact, I think it's going to be exactly the same thing. Wildwood, 45 to 50. Great. So that's going into number 249 here. Vildvolds. Great. Okay. And then that's the first half of this. We have Wildwood, 45 to 50. Great. Sarnar, 45 to 50. But it might be nice to have a category for the first half that does spell out that level range. Now, if your level is low enough, can I do that? Yeah, so I'm level 1. Okay. So if I'm level 1, as I've just told D-Tracker I am, we can see that the minimum level for these deeds is level 40. And the rest of Bree-land looks like only a few of them actually have a minimum level, which is funny. I think it'd be very difficult to complete Slayer of Ered Luin without reaching level 5 anyway, but if you manage it, you won't complete the deed until you are level 5. But if I'm actually level 116 as I am, then I won't get that sort of visual depiction. Okay, so let's go ahead and add 2 more categories, and they'll be at the start of Ered Luin and the start of Bree-land, because I think that'll be useful. So that's going to be 346, and that's going to be Ered Luin, 1 to whatever. My problem is I don't really like that because it means we're going to have the category or the page is going to be Ered Luin, and then we're going to have an Ered Luin section and a Sarnar section. And will that be weird? No, I'm not sure. Let's at least take a look and see. So I'm only going to bother with the English for right now while I'm looking at this. So that's 346, and we also want 347. And we can see if you're using a good IntelliSense enabled code editor like this is Visual Studio Code with a Lua extension, it's pointing out that I have hard-coded 2 IDs or indexes that are identical. And it knows that's probably not intentional because the one will stomp on top of the other. But it won't tell me that I have a gap in my hard-coded numbers. Like 348 will never be found by calling the iPairs function on this table. And that feels like it's worth a little squiggly line as well, but we don't have that. Okay, and this one's going to be Bree-land, 1 to 15. Is it 1 to 15? 1 to 24. Okay, So it would look something like that. And so now we can go on in here, and in Ered Luin, we can go ahead and insert. So this is going to be Ered Luin 1 to 15, which is it. Whoa. Which is a category, and that category is going to be 346. And remember, we inserted a row in Excel, so we do need to get that those formulas up here. Great. And let's go ahead and pull in the expanded Sarnar as well. Okay, so that's good. Now we have 29 entries here. Let's take a look at what that would be. So pull up our deed info, and to get the indent right, we're going to delete the existing stuff first and then bring in the new stuff. Let's unload and reload. Okay, so we can see, and this is a question, I guess, for anyone who's watching. Visually, if we have the Ered Luin deed page, and underneath that we have the Ered Luin stuff and the Sarnar stuff, does this feel weird to start the Ered Luin section with an Ered Luin category, given that kind of definitionally everything is here? Like, it's really feels like it should be not Sarnar and Sarnar, but anyway. So I guess if you're watching and you feel like that would be especially weird and have a good idea how to fix it, I'd love to hear. But in the meantime, I think I'll move forward to that, and we'll do the same thing in Bree-land for the Bree-land section and the Wildwood section, which at least matches up with a map where you do have Bree-land, and the Wildwood of Bree-land, it does at least have its own map, even though it's it's definitively within Bree-land, but it's Wildwood of Bree-land. So I don't know. Okay, but let's go ahead and come back in. LOTRO Redhead says, I think barring anything else more descriptive, Ered Luin and Sarnar is fine. Saucebear says, I feel like it makes sense to call out the exception to the area's normal level range, Wildwood, Sarnar, etc., but not call out the vanilla part of the region with its own category level. That's fair. I like the idea of calling out the level range for the basic stuff, though. So is there a nice way to do that, like Bree-land 1 to 24, or just 1 to 24 for this section, and Wildwood 45 to 50? Because it feels like we have the information. We know what level range Bree-land is. Little Redhead says, I like the level range in there for the vanilla part. That's nice. Yeah, that's sort of my instinct is I want the level range there. So in this case, it would be 1 to 24, let's say. Sasper says, but that's a tiny preference since you asked. I wouldn't be complaining if everything had the level range either. Yeah, that's beyond the scope of today for sure, but it's an interesting idea. Unfortunately, as we see, the way DTracker currently does categories is a little difficult and not very sustainable because we have each of these parallel files for the categories, and it was either that or have all the information in one file, and they both have their drawbacks. Yeah, Little Redhead says something I agree with, which is I think you kind of have to have the level range in the subcategories since there are areas that are wildly different in some level bands that are wildly different in some regions. And that's why I'm backfilling that into the Wildwood, because it was just Wildwood. And some of this, like DTracker, is always meant to be used in concert with other tools, the endgame deed log, maybe the wiki. But I like having the information here since we can do it. Okay, well, I will continue to think on that as I go ahead and implement the Bree-land version of this as well. So let's come in here. First of all, we're going to come on down and update the Wildwood category. And remember that I like bolding these categories. Let's come back and bold them. It doesn't actually do anything, it's just a visual. And then, okay, so Wildwood 45 to 50. And that would give us a Bree-land I think I said it was 24. Fastpar also likes having the level range in the Wildwood Sarnar category names. Yeah, I think I'm going to err on the side of having the redundant category just to call out that it is its own section, um, and that there's other sections. Of course, I don't even have. I just called it other for one thing drives out another. It's just it's a deed, and it's technically in the Bree-land, which I get it. It's barley and butter related, but it doesn't make sense to me. But it's also a hidden deed, so you never know it's going to be there until it's already complete. So it never shows up in the deeds to be completed category. Well, maybe for a fraction of a second while it's working its way through the process. Okay. So we know this is a category, and the Bree-land is number 347. We inserted a row in Excel, so let's go ahead and get those formulas back. And we're going to go ahead and bring in these 60 deeds into our deed info. So, okay, so we have our categories working there, and then start our, great. So everything is saved, file save all, great. Let's come in and take a look and see how that looks. So in Bree-land we have Bree-land 1 to 24 and Wildwood 45 to 50. Okay, I think I'm gonna leave that for now and think about it. Maybe play with it on a few characters, but I'm gonna err on the side of being a little redundant here. This isn't in most places. Like if you look at Shire, there's a yonder Shire. Oh my goodness. Well, never mind. We do have an exception. Okay, yonder Shire is 20 to 25. Let's take that into account. Yonder Shire, 20 to 25. And then what's the actual category? The Shire or Shire? Well, Shire here. In game, it is Shire. So weird, because in game, on the map, it is the Shire. The map is the Shire, but the deed category is Shire. So, I like to follow the game when I can, but what does that mean when the game is consistently inconsistent? It's actually fine because it's very Tolkien-esque to have multiple ways of referring to the same thing. Shire. Okay, and our level range map says Shire is 1 to 15. That seems very plausible to me. Really, once you're done with the prologue, I think he gets it on to Breetown anyway. So, we're going to call that Shire 1 to 15. We're going to remember to come on down and update that to 348. And yonder Shire gets updated as well. So let's come on into Shire and go ahead and update our yonder Shire entry. Did I remember to bold my categories in Bree-land? I did. Great. Okay, and in Shire, we want to go ahead and insert. This is going to be Shire 1 to 15. And that we know is going to be category 348. Great. So we inserted a row, blah, blah, blah. Is it possible that there's a configuration for Excel where it would be a little bit less destructive to formula when you insert a row? It is possible. I have not bothered to look for a solution to that. I just know it is a problem, and so I account for it. So we're going to come into Shire, which currently has 35 entries, and now it has 36. Great. Let's reload that and take a look. All right, so Shire 1 to 15, yonder Shire 20 to 25. Okay. Ered Luin 1 to 15, Sarnar 40 to 45, Swanfleet and Cardolan. I guess I could add level ranges. Oh, this is This is not where I thought I was going today, but I think it's useful. Okay, so, oh great depictor of level ranges. Swan Fleet 1 to 15, Cardalon 15 to 32. Yeah, let's do it. Okay. So, Swan Fleet. Well, that's fun. There's also the angle of methyl. Okay. Angle of methyl is roughly 40. Troll Shaw's is 35 to 40. That feels fine. But I'm going to call it Swan Fleet and Cardalon. Okay. Swan Fleet, 1 to 15. Cardalon, 15 to 32. My goodness. And Delvings. Someone actually requested an option to move the Delvings out of Swan Fleet and Cardalon into their own category somewhere, which I love the idea of that. I, in fact, did that implicitly with the Class Race Epic. Allegiances, there's just so many of them, and they are technically within reputation. But there's so many of them, and they just dominate the reputation category. There's already like 300 of these things. And so, I guess 150. Okay, I guess that's not that bad. Only 150 though? Durance Folk, Court of the Florian, Hobbit's Company, Kingdom of Gondor, Solar. Yes. There's another 60 that aren't being counted because I clicked that level range. There we go. 210. So there's 210 allegiance deeds, and there's 374 reputation deeds. So, having allegiances under reputation would just almost double, or I don't know, it's 40% more. Wait. 4 plus 210. 210 divided by that. Yeah, increase by 30. No, I've messed myself up. Anyway, that's a lot. And so they are tucked away on their own. But this is the case where it's right next to reputation. And I think because of the way the data structures work, it's really difficult to change things on the fly. So this is like hard coded in to all the tools that I have behind the scenes. So here, if I wanted to have delvings, where would it be? Because if it's not in Swanfleet and Cardalon, but someone doesn't realize that and they're looking for it, you would presumably want it somewhere nearby. But it's not really an Eriador thing. It should properly be under skirmish almost. It's not really, but this is where I would put it. I would have renamed this to be skirmish/mission, maybe, and then had a missions category under here. So skirmish instances, skirmish lieutenant, and then, or really delvings, and then delvings. And so underneath delvings would have been all of these deeds. And I would have done that because then the Swanfleet and Cardalon category can actually be completed with less than a year's work, which in general feels like a nice thing to do. Be able to complete everything in Swanfleet and Cardalon and then work slowly through these delvings, just like you would with skirmishes or instances, I guess. It's not really instances, and this is already way too big anyway. But skirmishes is underused. And it's not a hobby, it's not the war, and it's not a regional thing. And Class Race Epic already has reputation, so that name just, that's already a problem. But skirmish could have been. Yeah, Susper says, it almost feels like one could have an option checkbox to show delvings in their own category instead of the region categories. That's exactly what was asked for, was an option to do it. But under the covers, when Deed Tracker is loading, it's loading the structure of how to show things from these hard-coded tables. So when we're looking at the deed log page tab contents, in the theory that the deed log is in-game, you have the deed log, and you need names for what are these things at the top, what are these things at the bottom. So I said the things at the top are pages, the things at the bottom are tabs. Cool. And so we say, okay, within the skirmish, there's skirmish instances. Within the skirmish instances, there's 118 deeds or things to display, some of which are categories and some of which are deeds. And that's it. So this is just loading and populating the UI by just adding one for each of these things in each of these pages and tabs. And so changing that structure is probably possible, but I haven't really walked through how to make that happen. It's non-trivial and intractable. Sasper says, right, no dynamic reshaping unless there are two copies of the structure that the plugin could just change. And yeah, that was a thing I thought is like you could have a deed log page tab contents _1 and _2. I don't know. Naming things is hard, but you could have two versions of this table that you just toggle which one you're processing as you're loading the UI. Totally possible, but that means there's now two places that I have to keep up to date with each other. So suboptimal from a me perspective, or anyone who's doing maintenance on a plugin. Suboptimal there because you got to remember, hey, everything we just did, we got to do it down below as well, which is just rife with errors, or really likely to be making an error somewhere in there. So instead, you'd want maybe a tool that takes something that looks like this and spits out two different versions of it, or you write the code that just kind of does this on the fly, and that's quite possible. But the other problem is, how do we find the information when we complete something? And we have a deed info strings. No, that's not it. Deed name to ID. So we can, when someone completes the Caves in the Hill, we know it's this deed. And then we can then look up in our deed data. Great. And then in here is kind of that reverse hard-coded lookup. We're like, cool, for deed number whatever, 8670, we know it's on page 5, tab 1, and it's the 391st entry in there. Is this necessary? Probably not, but it is the current structure of the system. Sasper says, also feels like the character's plugin data file might get hard to maintain with the switch data file they're referencing. That's one where we're actually fortunate, because right now deed completion status is stored by this ID only, and once upon a time it was this IJK indexing, and that was a nightmare. So we moved away from that. But yeah, in the data file we say, okay, for deed 8670 it is completed at this time, or it's not completed. Well, if it's not completed, it's not there. Now, is this IJK necessary? I don't know. Like, the design of this has slowly shifted over time. But again, these are all the things that I have to think about when I'm like, ooh, what are we doing that? Which is why we're not doing that today. So, let's see. Deed categories. We have the Swanfeet, we have the Cardalon. Delving is not going to worry about. Angle of Methythal and Further Adventures, I believe that's with the twins. Angle Further Adventures. Oh, Bilbo and Aladon and El are here. Well, those are not level specific. Angle of Methythal is essentially the same level as Trollshaw's. I'm not going to worry about that. Okay. So, unload, reload, Bree-land, 124, Wildwood 45 to 50. Great. Other, I'm not going to go overboard. Okay, Shire, 115, Yundershire 20 to 25. Great. Ered Luin, 1 to 15, Sarnar 45 to 50. Perfect. Swanfleet and Cardalon, 1 to 15, Cardalon 15 to 32. Delvings. Yeah. Well, that's funny. I don't think that indent is right. Yeah. I think I added in this category name later. Maybe? So this indent would be 0, 1 to 2, and this should be down to here. Then these should all be 1 higher. But we're going to go ahead and this is, it's not really correct because I want to say, actually I don't remember, but I feel like if you completed 3-person delving on tier 10, does it not also progress your complete 100 delvings on tier 10 or 10 delvings on tier 10 or 1 delving on tier 10? I feel like they would. But if anyone has experience doing that, I haven't done very many tier 3 delvings yet. Sorry, 3-person delvings yet. But I feel like these are 3/6-person delvings. But I feel like this is not. But under delvings, you have to complete each tier 1 time, complete each tier 10 times, complete each tier 100 times, complete any tier many times. Sure. And then complete tier 10 1,000 times, which is why tier 10 should always be your default. If you can do tier 10 and you're not sure what you want to run today, run at tier 10, because to get Durin's Bane's Bane done, you're just going to take a lot of those. Now you can do 10 a day, so it actually only takes you 100 days, which is less than 4 months. If you're doing it every day, you're probably not, but less than 100 days of actually doing it if you can do tier 10. That's a good question. Where am I at? Well, I'm probably not on that. Wrath of the Light, probably. Delvings. Oh no, Durin's Bane's Bane. So I'm at 100 out of 1,000, so I just need 900 more, which is only 90 days of it. But unfortunately, this was on Treebeard, and Treebeard, we could be at level cap for a while, but over here we're not at level cap and won't be for a while, so these are out of sight. Okay, so 3 to 6-person delvings are definitely a delving category. I feel like it's just this 1 to 2-person delvings, it might be it. I'm going to make a note to come back for that. I don't want to get too sidetracked. Issues. One to 2-person delving versus 3 to 6. Category 287 claims that most delving deeds can only be advanced in 1 to 2-person delvings. Is this true? If not, maybe remove this category and just leave 3 to 6 in place. Okay, we're going to create that, and then we're going to not think about it anymore. Okay, so, but Lone Lands, North Downs, Trollshaws, Misty Mountains, Evendam, Angmar, Forchel, Arachion, Innervaith, Dunland. Cool. Okay. So I'm happy with that, but I think we got out of sync in our categories. So one of the easy ways I have to pay attention to that, I don't know if that's true. A way I have to pay attention to that is to come on in to a file comparison. But unfortunately, these should be different over time. but we can also come into our source control and say, hey, how has this changed today? So now we know we're on line 337. So that's going to give us a place to look. Okay. So at the very least, we can copy over 337, Bree-land. But instead of doing that, I see that Sarnar and the Wildwood, yeah. Instead of doing that, we know we have both of Ered Luin that we need to do. Let's just keep a little note here. Hi. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to type and pet you at the same time. Okay. You done? You're getting too far away. I can't reach you. Okay. Okay. So we've added these. We're going to go ahead and also call out this one. Oh, you're back. Okay. So that's going to be line 341. Let's wait 337, 338, and 339. Cool. And then well, I didn't mean to close it. Cool. After that, we added the Shire. 245. Great. Changed. Great. Okay, so this is kind of the cumbersomeness of the current category system, is remembering to go ahead and make these changes either at the time that I'm making them or circling back around to say, okay, let's go fix this. So what we want to do, and we can have these side by side if that is helpful for us, is my notes. Okay, there they are. So we know we're coming over to line 337. Great. Ered Luin, we want that. Turner. Bree-land, we do want that, but Bree-land is a different name, and we know that. So if we come into Slayer of Bree-land, great. And then come into the German one, we know that this is Bree-landis. Okay. Or just Bree-land with no tab. Great. So we know it's going to be like this. With no tab. Awesome. Wildwood, other Shire. So we know the Yonder Shire was already in there. We're going to bring in the Shire. But same thing. We know Shire might have a different name. So I think I'll do this slightly differently. Let's grab in a few more files. Okay, great. So instead, we can have a little reference here that deeds of the Shire. Let's go take a look at German. Auenland, great. So Auenland, and we can see also Fernen Auen, great. Though I think that's not how that vowel sound is in German, but it would be in Dutch. So, okay, Engel for adventures, but we can bring in the level change here. And then we're good. So, let's go ahead and close off that one and coming into French. So French, we want to go ahead and say we want Ered Luin. But again, let's double check and see what Ered Luin is for us. So deeds of Ered Luin. Now Ered Luin is, I want to say Elvish. So Ered Luin is in fact correct. Great. Sarnar's Inn. Now, Wild was interesting. Deeds of the Wildwood. Great. All right. So we can go ahead and update that to be the Savage Wood. But we do need our Bree-land as well. And for that one, deeds of Bree-land with a hyphen. Pay de Bree. Cool. Pie de Bree? Not sure. Okay, so we want a Shire. We also want a Yonder Shire. I'm not convinced either of those are correct. Let's go ahead and deeds of Yonder Shire. All right. La Comte machine. Let's see. Let's come on in to Google and get a sense of what's going on with this. The Distant Shire works for me. And then deeds of the Shire, not just Shire. And we can see that is Le Comte. Okay. Cool. So that gets us that, and then it looks like the French file is behind on being localized, but we can just grab a couple of them right now. So Swanfleet, Cardolan, let's do it. Deeds of Swanfleet. Possibly that. Sure. Swanfleet, Swan not. Cardolan. Cardolan is correct. Okay. So the last one, Delvings, we can go ahead and check excavations. Great. Okay, so that did get us some of that. One does wonder. Okay, we had Swanfleet. Okay, we had some of that localized as well. Cool, so we are a little bit better localized for French here. And we're done with that. Now, Russian isn't officially supported by Standing Stone Games anymore, but there is a fan community that has an active, ongoing maintenance, is my understanding. So we're going to do what we can to help them out. So we're going to start with just the stuff as it needs to be. So we're going to bring in Bree-land. We're going to see that we have added a character that we didn't mean to. Shire. Yonder Shire's level range. And then Swanfleet and Cardolan's level range. Great. So we can see a couple here. Let's take a look. I assume Sarnar is fine, but sure. Master of Beasts. Let's take a look. Alright, I would say Sarnar is in fact being translated to something. Let's see if we can find... Okay, progress override for this deed. That's fine. Alright, progress override. I'm going to guess this is Sarnar then. Cool. Let's go ahead and update the Russian for Sarnar. And then we'll move on to Deeds of Ered Luin. Okay. Just double checking. Ered Luin, great. Bree-land, almost certainly been localized. Great. Yeah. Deeds of the Bree-land. Lands of Bree. Good enough. Feels like that first letter should be capitalized though. So, edit, convert case, uppercase. There we go. And does that still work for us? Bree-lands. Cool. What about other Shire? Let's get the Shire. Slayer of the Shire. I'd rather have... no, that's fine. Guardian of the Shire. Great. Shire. Does this make sense given the next? I think so. But let's double check. Deeds of the Shire. Because Slayer ones can have gender markings. And the wrappers tend not to. Okay. Looks good. Cool. Okay. So all of this has been copied over to each of the language files that we support. Great. Let's double check that we didn't have a typo in at least the English one. Awesome. I wonder if I should have an override for language in my debug options. Okay, that's for later anyway. Okay, so cool. We have gone overboard, but we have essentially addressed the issue. Add category separator above Sarnar, Deeds, and Ered Luin. Awesome. Let's figure out what's changed and do some commits here to source control. So, added category separators for Sarnar, added level ranges on several categories. Sure. Now ideally, this is going to look pretty similar among all of them. So we can see there we replaced 2 lines of Bree-land with Ered Luin and Bree-land, which was Wildwood, cool. And then we also, under Eredor Shire and Swampfleet and Carnarvon, had some changes. I forgot to pull in the Eredor Trollshaws. Let's go ahead and do that. Might help it line things up better anyway. Why do you say there are problems in this file? Where? Not sure what it's talking about. We'll come back to that. Okay. So, Eredor Trollshaws, and Trollshaws. Okay. So, does that make it easier to synchronize these things? Looks great. Okay, and then this is going to be much easier in something like this. We can see we added the Bree-land category. We updated the Wildwood. We added the Shire. We updated Yonder Shire. We added Ered Luin. We updated Sarner. And we didn't actually do this, but in case we do come in again, let's come into the source files, Eredor, coming into Swampfleet and Carnarvon, and make sure that these levels are here as well. Alright, Swampfleet and Carnarvon. Cool. Okay. So let's go ahead and maybe add that to the README file while we're at it. One less thing to catch up on later. Cool. So we'll commit those. We're going to go ahead and push that out. And then we're going to go ahead and copy that SHA so that we can bring it back into our issue and say affixed and that. Close. And it knows how to resolve that to be that commit that we just did right there. Awesome. So that is one less thing remaining. And I feel like that's a good set of changes, especially for early usage of the D tracker. Okay. There's a couple other things that I wanted to work on. We've been streaming for about an hour now, so let's see if we can knock out one more thing at least. And our options are add D-Tracker version to missing deeds ID message, okay. Add a season name to the war categories, and manual deed completion times from LOTRO Companion. Now these are both LOTRO Companion import things. Where are we looking at categories? Let's see if we can make sense of this. So in the war, which I have very little experience with, there are some seasonal rewards, like Season of the Nemesis, Season of Malice, Season of Scorn, and Seasons 1 and 6, for which I don't know if they have names. And it might be nice to include like Seasons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So first of all, is there a handy dandy lookup somewhere for PVMP seasons? So PVMP seasons, LOTRO list. Great. Okay. Nemesis. We know Nemesis is season 2. Perfect. Let's get some of that in. So, we're coming back into our source control, which is not that, and it's not that. What's up, little one? Why are you crying? Okay, we're going to go over to the war. Looking at common. And so we're line 181. So let's go ahead and get everything on line 181. Great. So, Season of Nemesis. S2 Nemesis, S3 Menace, S4 Scorn, or Season 1. Oh, Season 1 Strife. That's interesting. Do we have reason to believe it's Strife? Well, other than the fact that they would know. Let's go take a look at the rewards from 1. Season of Strife, portrait frame. Fair enough. Okay. What does this look like? Monster Player Reward Season 1. It's not Monster Player Reward. This is stuff you get for PVMP. But the whole category is the war, which is PVMP. So I think we can rename this to Season 1, and this would be, I think, Strife. And this would be Season 2, Nemesis. Now, Season of Malice, was there a reason I was doing that? Yes. So, Season 3, Malice. Season 4, Scorn. Season 5, Spirit? That doesn't sound right. Alright, Nemesis, great. Malice, awesome. Scorn, great. What are you? Season of Spirits. And this is Rivals. Season 6 Rivals. Okay, so that would in theory be our updated categories. Let's take a look at that. So Season 1 Strife, Season 2 Nemesis, Season 3 Malice, Season 4 Scorn, Season 5 Spirit, Season 6 Rivals. That all looks great. What's going on? Why isn't that one marked as limited time only? Let's take a look at this. Okay, so Just gotta pull it up in a different window. Great. It's over here. So let's go ahead and equals 3 title, and that's Bastion of Light. I'm gonna have to deal with that later. Okay. I assume these are the same names for both sides. So we'll get that updated, and then it is conceivable that some of these are not limited time only, that you can earn them from other rewards, but the deeds themselves, well, are from getting the title. So if you can get the titles in some other way. Okay, but I don't know enough about PvMP, so I'm just marking them as not actively available. Okay, so how do we duplicate this change over here? Let's find out. And here, we need that file I just closed. Okay. Actually, we'll do it a different way. Okay, so Strife, Season of Strife Portrait of Frame. Let's see if we can find that. The redhead points out, yes, there is a monster reward track. However, the deed tracker is currently only tracking deeds that can be awarded by or earned by the Freeps characters, not the Creeps characters. And so for players in the P in the PvMP, they can earn deeds from earning titles that are awarded during seasons, and those seasons are tied with the monster player season names. So that's why all these names are keyed off of the MP side of things. Okay. Cool. Tell me more about this thing. Alright, so this is Zeit der Zwietracht. Hey, I'm guessing that's a time of discord. And that's just, okay. So we're going to call that what we're doing here. So, Saison, oh, this is German? Yeah, alright. Zwei, Nemesis 3, Bossheit, Anger. What's 328? Malice, right. Saison 4, Achtung, Saison 5, and Saison 6, which should be rivals. So, if we come into here, rival, okay, great. So that will be the changes that we want for the German titles. Great. Now we want to do that for French. La saison. Let's see if Google thinks that if we did saison, okay. If we did saison and yeah, except that's supposed to be today. Saison in. Great. Okay, so we're set up for this. Nemesis. Okay, so we need the same thing from before. We need the strife. So we're going to go into the English labels for items, and we want to go ahead and go into the French labels for items. And we're looking for strife. 3 people's portrait frames. Great. Season of strife. Let's find something simpler. Saison du chaos. Chaos. Alright. Chaos is fine with me. And then rivals. Season of the rivals? You gotta be kidding me. Okay, well, a naive run through Google Translate, I'm hoping we'll say good enough. Rivals. Okay, great. And then let's look at the Russian. And go ahead and open that up. We've got the items lookup, and we're going to go ahead and look up the Season of Rivals portrait frame. Season of Strife. Okay, we're going to look at that. Alright, so I think that first one is going to be our word for season. No, it's frame. Ah! Yes, okay. So, time of discord. Great. So, it's time! No, so that's going to be our season. And looks like we more literally translated from season before, but let's go ahead and instead, I won't treat that as nope, but I don't think it is. Pora.
Pora.
Oh. Okay, so we want to go ahead and look up the other ones. Because we're missing all of them. So let's do this. Season of Strife. Great, we have that. Oh, I had this whole thing. Great. So let's go ahead and bring that in. Because we do want to probably capitalize that, and I just want the tool to do it for me. Great. So in theory, if we run that back through Google Translate, we should get something reasonable. Time 1 Discord. Great.
Пора один раздора.
Okay. Great. Nemesis. Season of the Nemesis? Sure. Same thing. I'm going to bring this over here. One of these days I'll remember how to do uppercase, Control K, Control U. And then we'll bring this in. Great. Season of Malice. See, it's in a Malice frame. Fortunately, these are all right next to each other. Okay. Bring that on in. Next up is Season of Scorn. Okay, Season of Scorn. So bring that in here. Uppercase the first letter. Next one is Season of Spirit, which is Season of the Spirit. Don't think I can worry about that right now. Okay. And then finally, Season of Rival. Alright, Season of Rival's frame. Has not been localized yet as of the last time I got this data, and that's okay. I can double check. Any new Russian translations? Probably not. However, there are some changes. Let's take a look. Oh, yes it has. Excellent. So we're going to go ahead and bring that in as well. So that gives us our localizing for the war, and now we have a consistent way to label these seasons. So let's go ahead and unload and reload and take a look at that. Season 1 Strife, Season 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, lovely. Let's go ahead and come on into the war. Sure. Need to fix that someday. Let's come into the war and go ahead and backfill these categories. That way we won't run into problems later on by some inconsistency. So let's go ahead and grab Season 2 Nemesis. And let's go ahead and bold up these categories so they'll be easier to see. Alright, Season 4, Season of Scorn. I do like the more poetic, Season of Scorn, Season of the Spirits, or whatever, but I just could not think of a way to coherently insert numbers in there in multiple different languages that I don't really understand the grammatical rules for. And so we're just going to do something like this. Okay, great. So let's look at how that would be committed. And we're coming up here on 10 o'clock local, which is 2 p.m. No, sorry, yeah, about 4 p.m. server time, which I could know if I had just looked over here. I don't know if the game actually tells that. I have a plugin for that. But we're coming on about 4 p.m. server time. So this might be the start of the end of the stream where we're going to go ahead and be committing this and then be kind of musing on what comes next. But let's go ahead and... Oh, we're done with that. Let's look at our source control here. Oh, I moved it to another screen. Great. Let's bring it back. Okay. So, we have a goal updated the war category names with season numbers. Great. So that's the original. That is each of those. And that's just removing some white space. So let's go ahead and add this to our README. Great. And we'll go ahead and pick this up in a separate commit. Fixed white space. Okay, so we can go ahead and grab this commit hash, come on in here, and say fixed in commit blah, close. Great. Now, in a more formal software engineering setting, it might be a little bit early to close this. It might be nice to mark it as waiting for testing, waiting for an actual release. Like that is fixed only on my machine. No one else has access to that fix. So in a more formalized release process, you might move all of the things that were going to be fixed in release N from open to closed during that or something else. But there's more stuff we could be doing on the right here than we are doing. But just to be aware that if you're in a formalized software setting, there will hopefully be more steps involved. Maybe you have a QA that's going to test to make sure that the change you said it works actually does work, and that's part of closing out the issue. Anyway, so we had 20 open. Now we've got 19 open. Oh, we opened a new one. All right, we went down one, went up, went down two, went up one, but you know. Sasper says, YOLO, test in production. I prefer not to, but you know, there's only so much you can do when you're a single person writing plugins. Okay, so we have fixed a couple of those things. Now, the next two issues that I had pulled up as nice, good stream-sized chunks to work on, and I'm all done with those, both had to do with importing from LOTRO Companion. And I think we can glance at those real quickly and then decide whether or not that's going to be something we work on. So, at the moment, I have a fresh plugin data save file. And we can see that because I have completed 0 deeds. But what if I had completed deeds, but then I have downloaded a deed tracker? Now, plugins don't have access to your in-game deed log history, but using the LOTRO Companion third-party program, we can get that information. So, assuming you've already done an import from LOTRO Companion, you can run import deed completion from lotrocompanion.hda. Eventually, I'll try to replace this with a PowerShell script. I think some people have already informally done that. It just hasn't risen to critical yet. Because it just works for, like, a lot of the people who try to use it, it seems to work for. And then every once in a while, someone has a configuration problem where it just does not work. And it's like, I'm sorry, your computer is broken? It's not fair. It's not broken. It just doesn't do this one thing. But Yeesh. Anyway, so we're on Peregrine. We're talking about Affidel, so we're going to go ahead and run the import. Now, the way this works is it's going to write out a file that dtracker will look at the next time that it loads. So let's take a look at both of those things. So we can see we wrote out this file. So let's go take a look at it. So that is companion import under Peregrine Affidel. So let's take a look at that. So right now it's just saying whether or not it was completed or not. And one of the issues was, in theory, the LOTRO, the data will also tell us when it was completed if it was manually marked. So let's pull up LOTRO Companion and let's find where its data is stored. All right, LOTRO Companion is loaded there. And then by default, it's going to be stored in your user directory in .lotro companion. Looks like my last backup was a while ago. How big is this? Small enough that I should make another backup of it. Okay, so if I come in to a character, there's theoretically a way to mark when a deed was completed, and we're going to find out what that looks like. Completion date. Hey, it's right there. Oh, and you can just type it in there. Okay. Well, let's think. Melodies of the Valley. The Rising Chord. That's level 44. What's like the earliest thing? No place for spoiled pies. Great. What goes in here? Question mark? Didn't like that. Okay. 2026 05 26. I don't think it likes that. It's in red. Okay. What if it was 05 26 2026? What if it was now? Okay. So there's a right click, fill in the now. Okay. So that's what that looks like. But let's go ahead and exit out to make sure it has saved. And we have our .backup, and that's going to be 2026-05-26. Great. Okay, so in here, in the characters folder, we can see that we were in 5, so we're going to come look at deed status. So it looks like this. Now we know we were just messing with a deed, but I've forgotten what name it is, so we're going to load that back up. Yeah, there's 25 raiders from the Royal Blue joining, and the Jinxdell, so I don't know what's going on, but welcome everyone. We're glad to have you over here at the LOTRO Stream official Twitch channel. We're looking at the Deed Tracker plugin right now, so not a lot of gameplay, but lots of spreadsheets. Welcome everyone. I assume whoever is raiding is the streamers are about to go off and have their bio breaks and food breaks and whatever else, but glad to have you for however long you are here. The Royal Blue says, I've been wanting to get this plugin. Well, good news for you. It is available. Just head on over to lotrointerface.com, search for dtracker, and it's going to be the one by B4142135662. That's me. And I mostly stream over here, but if anyone has a desire to see more plugin development stuff, feel free to toss a follow. I think you get notified even when I'm streaming here, but I don't understand Twitch, so correct me if I'm wrong about that. Anyway, so come on over here. I'll pop a link there into the chat, but you can download it here, or you can use the LOTRO Plugin Compendium tool by community member Lunar Water. which will allow you to install these things automatically. So if I come in here and say I want the hunter deadly decoy, I can click this and press add, and it is done. So highly recommend the LOTRO Plugin Compendium, but you can always install these things manually. Blue says, I had it bookmarked already. Excellent. So we are looking at how the integration between LOTRO Companion and DTracker works. We are towards the tail end of my stream, but of course everyone here is welcome. And if anyone has any questions about LOTRO in general or plugins in specific, please toss them into chat. Okay, so we are going to be looking at deeds for a second because we wanted to figure out how this completion date thing works. Now this is no place for spoiled pies. Excellent. Is there an ID in this interface? I don't see it, but that's okay. That's enough for us to find it. So we're going to search for no place for spoiled pies. Oops. Can't lose that. Okay, so deeds. It is this one. We know it is that number then. Hey, where'd it go? No place for spoiled pies is this number. So if we come into deed status, we can see that there's a completion date that, since I've never manually marked this information, I didn't realize this was here. Now, this looks like an epoch time, probably a Unix time. So let's take a look at that. So Unix time to readable time. Epoch converter, perfect. Let's toss this in and see what we get. So this is at epochconverter.com. For those that don't know, a common way of counting time, especially on Unix systems or systems derived from that, is to count the number of seconds since January 1st, I want to say 1970. And we can see the current Unix epoch time is just ticking away there. So it is entirely possible that it knows, since I gave it some extra digits here, 9825, the last three. So it knows I gave it 3 digits too many, so it knows I was doing it not in seconds but in milliseconds, it looks like, which is more precise than I was expecting it to be. So it decodes that to being Tuesday, today, May 26, 2026, at this time. So that is that is a UTC time? Which makes sense. What do I store it in? I store it as a string. I don't store it as a calculable time, which is probably a problem. But there might be some Lua functions that already exist in order to deal with this. Let's go look at the engine. So we can get time, get local time, which is the number of seconds since that. Great. So that's fine. That's the number of seconds since, and we already have a way to convert that into our completion time. Because if I come in here and I complete the old forest, we can see we have a way to convert that already. So let's look at that. Not that one. Where'd my code go? So import. When we are doing the import, check for companion import, perfect. So if that one exists, then we're going to process it. Great. And to process it, okay, so this is all of that. But when we do a deed completion, where do we mark the time? Well, how is the time saved? Let's come on in to Lord of the Rings online plugin data, my account, my server, and we're going to be in all characters. And let's take a look at this. So this is stored as W for win. Fantastic. And now I've got to remember where that happens. Possibly general functions, possibly plugin functions. Get game time. Was that the name of this? Get local time. Let's see where that's being used. It's not. Get game time. Great. Okay. If we have a region, location number, and the game time, yeah. That's not what I was looking for, though. I appreciate all of those uses, though. We have get game time, get local time. Must be using get date. Make save entry. Great. So we're getting a get date, which gives us a bunch of fields. So that doesn't actually solve the problem. Okay. So we need a way to convert Unix time to something like this format. Or we could... So here's the reason. I don't have a use for... No. Unix time would be very useful for doing math on these things. But until I need that, it would add some amount of time on startup to recalculate, or some amount of storage on disk to save both the number of seconds and the string format like this. Okay, so we can go ahead and make some notes here. Okay, so what did we find? We found that in the deed status, if a deed's completion time is manually marked in a LOTRO companion, it looks like this. And we'll go ahead and paste that in. Great. Current deed completion time is stored as a string in the deed tracker data file. Let's outdent this. Okay, that looks great. And then what else do we have? Current deed import file looks like this. No, stores deed completion info like this. This will need to change to a table that includes completion status and optionally time as well. Is there a VB script? No, an HTA accessible function to convert Unix epoch time to something like year, month, day, hour, minute, second. So if the HCA can go ahead and call a function that converts Unix time to this, then that would give us the ability to store it as a string, which is right now what we're doing. We're storing it as a string. It would be nice to be able to just use the Unix epoch time, but we would have to take into account time zones. Note, this is Unix epoch in milliseconds. And did I have that right? Yeah. UTC 0. It should be converted. Now, when I completed that, that was local time to local time before. So, note, it might be better to switch to storing epoch via, what was the name of the file? Game time? Local time. Sassbar asks, what are the use cases around knowing the deed completion time? I guess it's displayed in the deed tracker, but currently there's no lookback function to say how many deeds had I completed as of X date, right? Yeah, that was the thing, is I thought it would be nice just to record it off because it is there visually. Like, if you go back and it's like, oh man, when did I complete this Aldenorian deed? It was, oh my goodness, 4 years ago, wow, or whatever. So at the very least, having a little textual thing of what day was it, what time was it when I completed these deeds, that seemed neat. But in the back of my head, I do have the idea of it could be neat to have a little graph that could be displayed. Now, drawing that within Lord of the Rings Online, within the restrictions of the API, sounds tricky. So I think it would be much faster just to run a script to import all of these dates into Excel, which can process them as they are, and graph them that way. So storing them as a string doesn't matter from an Excel point of view because it can parse them just fine. It's very good at date parsing. Storing them as a number might actually be a little bit more difficult because while I'm confident Excel has a Unix epoch to something more sensible conversion function, it would be an extra step. Saspar says, just contemplating whether it's worth doing the time zone conversions for the users who move across the world, maybe take their laptop on vacation. Yeah, I've never worried too much about that. There is the ability to kind of ask the user or to interrogate what's the time zone difference, but I think you kind of have to prompt the user to do that, or they can go do something that gives that information. Like the Titan bar has a little widget that will tell you server time versus current time, but you have to tell it the time zone offset. So yes, the question is just consistency. Right now, if I imported that that Unix timestamp from LOTRO Companion into dtracker, it would be different than the value I would get just completing it in game by checking the box, and it would be off by the time zone difference. So assuming our HTC, which is just it's just a web page with VBScript or CScript or one of those scripting languages available to it. So if there's a function to convert Unix to something more human readable, there's almost certainly a function to get the time zone offset from UTC-0. So we can just kind of do that all at the same time, just because if you mark a deed completed now and then you import it in and it says, oh yeah, that was completed 3 hours from now in the future or 2 hours ago, that's just not a very good user experience. And so if we can kind of trivially do the math to go ahead and add and remove, because time zone offsets, if you know the difference between UT0 and your current time zone, then the math to apply that to a number of seconds is pretty trivial. Only because it is so potentially easy to do it, and because it would be so obviously weird if I just marked it as now, did the import, and the time wasn't even close. That would feel weird. And the default use case is someone on Eastern time zone, which is like -4, -5 UTC, depending on daylight saving time. And so it would be definitionally wrong for them every time, and for everyone else maybe depending on where they are. So that's why I'm thinking about it. But I agree, it's not a huge deal. It's just because LOTRO Companion is storing at UTC-0 and most of the world's not on UTC-0, we can account for that. But dtracker does not try to update things. If you move your computer to a different time zone, dtracker doesn't care. You have to know where you were to make sense of the historical data. Absolutely. Okay. So just a note at the bottom for me to think of. But I think actually you've convinced me, Saskabear, that in the short term, a script that dumps this into CSV for Excel to Naman is going to beat out anything I could do in game, because drawing a graph of a historical timeline is non-trivial in so many dimensions, not least of which is just drawing pixels on the screen is difficult. I think you would basically want to have a control with little children control that are 1 pixel by 1 pixel with the background color that you need to draw for the line, and that just doesn't sound very memory efficient, and it doesn't sound like a lot of fun. Like, there's no just background that you can just draw pixels on that I know of for LOTRO widgets. Sasper says, right, so post-processing might someday assume a constant-ish offset, but no accounting for user running around between different time zones. Yep, that's pretty much it. dtracker gets the time that the game thinks it is and stamps it with a string, and that's as far as it goes. But no one's ever asked for anything else. No one's ever been like, oh man, I really wish that the saving of the time would do blah. So I think if anyone looks at it at all, they're happy enough with what it's doing. So we're going to go ahead and add that comment. So if we can take this into account and convert it to local time zone offset, and then store it in the file that's being consumed by a dtracker, which is currently only doing an ID equals completed, but would be ID equals a table that contains a status of completed and a completion time optional of blah 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 blah. Then we can make this happen. So there's a couple of ifs there, but we've kind of delved into what it would take to do that. And add the dtracker version to missing deed IDs message. What a great question. What is LOTRO at Gmail? Let's figure out where that is. Okay. dtracker did not register this. Now, this is what I want. I want to include the version here. And we actually already have a string or the availability to get this. So if we just say actually what if is that get version being used anywhere else? Wouldn't it be nice to just have a single string that contains what I want here? Where is lang getting included? No, strings. Okay. It could be here. Okay, so dtracker name and version equals quotes dtracker v dat done. So this, and then we add that, and that will tell us whether this works. All right, loaded dtracker version whatever by Q. Great. Geladen, and then we'll go ahead and do the same thing. End that, append that, and then Russian also. Okay. Great. But that means we now have this. So if we instead do did not recognize and so then we could go ahead and test that out. So we have this. So we just do a debug of get string, and that's lang dot companion import win, and then this. Great. Oh, I don't think I have my debug options on there, or my verbose output. Okay, so all right, let's put it at the bottom. There we go. Okay, dtracker version 324 did not recognize the following IDs. Please email this for a future release. Great. So a problem I was having is I occasionally get emails from people, and that's awesome, because dtracker will, when it's doing this import, it'll spit out a message saying, hey, I don't know what these are. Send them off to that email address. It's what this message is. But I couldn't tell without further follow-up what version did this come from? Has this already been fixed? Blah, blah, blah. If they're on version 3.1 or something, maybe I don't care so much. So this is going to be better than just dtracker did not recognize, but dtracker 3.2.4 did not recognize. Perfect. So we're going to go ahead and call that a done one, and then I'll mark this up, and then that'll bring us to the end of the stream. So let's see, add dtracker version, cool. So we have main, well, we don't want that, cool. And we have our strings. So, added variable for plugin name and version used in deeds missing message. Deed IDs. Great. So that is all isolated just to this one. We made the variable, we confirmed that it works, and then we swapped it in the place that we needed it to be. Great. I should remember to put it in the README. This is just kind of an other. Import message about missing deed IDs now includes deed tracker version. Great. Bam. So we're going to commit that. We'll push it out. And we'll also go ahead and copy the SHA so we can come on back in, fixed in commit, blah. Close. Now that's it. Now we're down to 18. Hooray. Cool. And now we have some thoughts on how to work with this one as well, but it's not as trivial as I was hoping it would be. It's going to require a couple of steps to complete. Awesome. Well, that's so many windows. Cool. Let's see. I think we're all caught up with chat. We're all caught up on what we've been doing. And that's everything we're going to cover today. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. I hope to see you all here next week. And until then, keep plugging along. All right. Bye-bye now.